What's the Freedom of Information Act all about? Find out from the editor of the local newspaper, coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio. We're focused on the Freedom of Information Act, and we're visiting with the editor of the Myrtle Beach Herald, Tom O'Dare.
Good morning,
Tom.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for coming in so early.
Yeah, it's pretty early. Yeah.
And it's a hectic morning to be thinking about, obviously, to have to be proofing the paper now. And
exactly, on Wednesday mornings, yeah.
We're emailing it down to the press. It's down to the printer in just a little bit so that it can be out on the stands in the morning.
Late Wednesday night, Thursday mornings, we'll come back out. So.
Late tonight, and it'll be out tomorrow morning, obviously, in all the boxes. It's fascinating when you think about what all goes into.
It's amazing how it's done now. Used to the old way, you'd have to paste it up and carry it to the printer, and now you put it in the computer, email it, and it's done just like that. I don't know how it works, but that's how it works.
That's right. You know, Betty and Kathy know how it works.
Yeah, I give them the stuff, they make it work.
That's right. It is fascinating. Tom, you've seen the press change. I mean, the newspaper business changed quite a bit over the years.
Yeah, even I got into the business in the late 80s, and it's changed dramatically in the last 15, 20 years. It's amazing. We used to have to take it and paste up by hand and glue the stories onto the pages, and then take pictures of the pages and take those pictures to the printer, and now it's all on computer. Boom, boom, boom. It's gone now. So.
Golly.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Just over that 15-plus year.
Yeah.
I wonder when the big change began to take place.
When the internet really kicked in.
I
mean, that just revolutionized the whole industry.
So that you could email it to the printer for community papers or tri or bi-weeklies.
Exactly.
Of course, for dailies, for the most part, they must have their press right there.
Most of them do, yeah.
On site.
Yeah, it's just more feasible for them. But
what was it that prompted you in the first place to get in the newspaper business?
Actually, I was teaching school, and I was at a little private school in Charleston, and the enrollment dropped, and so all of us who had master's degrees, they said bye because they were paying us too much. They said it wasn't much, but they were paying us too much. And so I saw an ad in the paper. The lady who owns the Goose Creek Gazette newspaper was needing somebody to cover city council and county council meetings.
Right.
Somebody who liked politics. So I called her up. I told her I don't have a bit of experience whatsoever. She says, good, that's what I want. She says, I'll train you if you'll come up here and do it. So I went up there, talked to her, and got hooked ever since.
Right.
That was about 87, 88.
So you were living in Charleston, but traveled up to Goose Creek, or down to Goose Creek?
Well, it's about 20 miles from
okay.
Yeah, so.
Not a bad trip there.
That's where I got hooked on the newspapers. Been in it pretty much ever since.
Now, you continued teaching a little bit, though, after that.
After that, when we first moved out here, I actually taught at a couple of private schools here in town before I got back into the newspaper business. But I always fall back to the newspaper I love. My wife says I'm perfect because I'm nosy, and it's a perfect job for me. So.
Wow, yes. Nosy Tom.
Exactly.
That is great. Yeah, you have to be nosy.
You have to be if you're going to do it right, yeah. You have to want to know what's going on and who's doing it and why and when, that kind of stuff. So.
The background behind, I think I've heard Steve Porter say that, or maybe you've said that before, Tom, on the TV spots for the Herald, kind of the behind the scenes of what's really happening.
Yeah. You got to know what's back there to be able to tell what the people want to know. So, in this town, there's a lot back there.
Yeah. Whether it's Myrtle Beach or Goose Creek, I guess every
community is like that. Yeah.
There's
always something
going
on. Anytime you have people, you have all kinds of stuff going on, no matter where they're from. So.
But there's delicate positions that you get in as the editor. I mean, really making sure that oftentimes the story can continue, that you don't let everything out of the bag, but at the same time you want to get it all out.
Well, yeah, there's a fine line sometimes. You have to balance how much to put out there, if you can put it out there. I mean, there's some stories, we get suggestions for stories, there's no way we do them, just personal kind of stuff. But plus there's certain stories you want to do so much at a time, just to keep the readership.
Right, sure. And that's indicative of all papers, whether community papers or daily papers or anyone.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
Sure. You think about it, are you originally from the area, Tom?
Originally from Pickens, South Carolina, the upstate, up near the mountains.
Okay, and so of course you were down in the Low Country for a while. I think you've been in lots of areas.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Carolinas for a good while.
Yeah.
Did you attend school in South Carolina?
I went to Clemson University.
Okay.
We won't talk about ACC, but we went to Clemson University.
That's right. Yeah.
Got to actually major in political science and secondary education.
Huh.
And I taught school for, like I said, 12 years before I got into the newspaper business.
And you said you got a master's degree later.
Got a master's degree actually in counseling.
Son of a gun. Those are a little different. Politics, secondary education, counseling.
Counseling. And so I work for a newspaper, so go figure,
Golly, yeah. I didn't know you had that counseling background.
Yeah.
Had you ever thought about being a dedicated counselor?
Actually, when I was teaching school, I thought about it, but those were, at the time, positions were few and far between, so never really got any openings. But then, like I said, I got the newspaper bug, and pretty much. And I love politics, love finding out what's going on,
Right.
sort of falls right into it.
Oh, yeah. I think last week was what the South Carolina Press Association calls Sunshine Week.
Sunshine Week, actually, it's nationwide.
Okay.
It's for the media nationwide, and Sunshine Week pretty much celebrates our freedom to find out what's going on in the government. It's most people, when they hear sunshine laws, it's the same as freedom of information laws.
Right.
Everybody has a right to know what your government's doing. Not just the press, but anybody. A lot of people think it's just the press who could ask for Freedom of Information Acts or laws or whatever. But anybody, you have a right to know what's going on, your government elected officials are doing. And Sunshine Week is a way that all the media, pretty much nationwide, sort of bring that out, let everybody know that that freedom is there, and we're sort of watching out for you.
Well, I think it was fascinating to see. I know that's national, but the South Carolina Press Association made an effort
Right.
to send
They
folks
made a
out.
concerted effort to let everybody know that, yeah, the press is, sometimes the press gets a bad rap, for whatever reason. But the press is looking after, looking out for you. Most people don't have the time to go out and sit in city council meetings or go look up information and what's going on, and that's our job.
Those open record laws are for everyone, not
Everyone,
only the press.
not just the press. Most people think it's just for the press, but any citizen has the right to go and say, if they know the law and know what they're looking for, say, I want to see this record, or
Right.
I don't think you should go behind closed doors to have that secret meeting right now.
Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer, I think the South Carolina Press Association put some snoops out, not necessarily in a bad way, but having folks call saying, I'm an ordinary citizen, I want to find, get some open records about such and such.
Want to find out what happened to the council, want to see this police record, want to find out what this budget was and this kind of thing.
They didn't have a great retention of getting access to those records.
Yeah, and well, that's just the nature of the business. A lot of people in government don't want everybody to know what's going on for whatever reason, political, personal, business reasons, whatever.
Right. So critical to have public notices about
Exactly.
meetings. Obviously, those are sent out. You see some of the superb efforts of folks like Mark Crua, the public information officer for the city of Myrtle Beach, who constantly.
Mark does a great job. We're lucky to have Mark in this area. He does a great job for us. And Lisa at the county does the same
Right.
thing.
Lisa Boussier really,
Yeah.
and of course all the communities, whether it's Surfside Beach, the town of Surfside Beach, or the city of Myrtle Beach, or our viewers up at the PD in southeastern North Carolina, it is critical that they have somebody providing those opportunities for you to be available for me.
And in the same turn, they have to abide by the Freedom of Information Act law. They have to let you know 24 hours ahead of time when a meeting is going on. We don't just show up just because we happen to know it's there. We're told that, so which is a good thing.
What's that like attending meetings where you can feel in the room, oh, we really don't need Tom here?
Yeah, that's sometimes you get that.
You can feel, why is that O'Dare still here?
The press is still here. He's still
Yeah.
hanging out. We got to watch what we say. This
Right.
kind of thing,
You can tell that whether it's you or any
Or
other
anybody,
reporter.
yeah.
Sure.
Some people just have this natural affinity for the press, and some have a natural dislike.
This was right.
And you always got to wonder. And of course, being a reporter, you wonder, why does he want the press there? Why does she want the press there? What?
Yeah.
And that usually makes us stay longer. So when you get that feeling, I'm just going to hang around here.
Yeah.
I'm starving. I want to go home, but I'm afraid I might miss something. So,
That's hilarious, Tom. Yeah. As your wife said, that nosy capacity really
Exactly,
comes
yeah.
in good for
Yeah.
for papers then.
Exactly.
Now, you've been at a couple of different papers. I think you had some experience in Myrtle. I mean, after arriving in the Horry County area.
Right.
Some experience in North Myrtle Beach Times, and then obviously back here.
Back here, yeah.
You rejoined the Herald.
In 2001.
Okay, great. And of course, at that time, I can't remember who, if Debbie Harwell owned it then, or if there was a big group of investors.
There was like 10 people who owned it at that time. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, 10
So
different groups, yeah.
Debbie bought it back, and of course, it has since changed hands in late 2003. It's fascinating when you think about all the activities that go into a paper. How do you decide, Tom, when you think about how a paper is going to be laid out? How do you go through all those machinations to determine what's the right place to place a story?
Well, you pretty much have to know your readership. What's important to them. And after you've been in the community a while, you make the judgment call. Most people are going to want to know this. This is a nice little feel-good story. People like to read this kind of thing. This is important. Well, this one they heard about last week, or we're going to put this one back here. But, you sort of get a feel of the community, what's going to be important. And that's pretty much something you have to learn over the years.
Right, right. You all made a recent trip, you and one of the graphic artists and the layout director
Exactly.
made a recent trip to Spartanburg.
And
the
we're
South
very,
Carolina Press.
very proud of that trip.
How'd it go?
The South Carolina Press Association has their winter meeting every year. They change locations every year. And they give out the awards that are judged by people from other states. They don't make, it's not in-house. You submit papers, articles, or whatever, and they're sent to another state. I'm proud to say the Herald placed first in general excellence in all weekly papers, 4,000 and under.
No way.
Yep, first place. We're very proud, and that's a tribute to the whole staff, everybody, office staff, writers, photographers, graphic artists, everybody. It's a general excellence, which means it was the entire paper.
How did the judges go about determining, they must get entries from all over the state? I mean,
Everybody sends in. We send
that's
in.
in mailed circulation, 4,000 or less. So that would be like North North Beach Times, Orient Independent, the Coastal Observer in this area, some of the other
Upstate,
papers.
mid-state,
sure.
all over the place.
Right,
There's
but that would be
dozens
for
and
the
dozens.
entire state. Yeah, tons of papers.
And you send in 3 copies of a paper during the year. They look at it and determine. In fact, the judges said it was a very readable paper and very extreme, great coverage of local stories, which makes us proud because we focus on the local aspect of
Right.
it. So we were proud of that. And we're also proud of Betty Moses, our copy editor. She won first place in page 1 design.
Is that right?
And that's so important because if that paper's in a box, if that front page doesn't look, interesting or exciting to somebody, they're going to walk right by it.
Mm-hmm.
So that front page is so important to a newspaper. And she's won that a couple times.
Golly, Betty
Yeah.
Moses. Now, Betty preceded you even at the Herald.
Yeah, she's one of the originals of the Herald. So yeah, when it first started.
That is fascinating. You're thinking about, you look in local communities and you see papers like the Dillon Herald or the Bennettsville, the paper up there, or obviously the Loris Times or Loris Scene, the Orient Independent, which has been around for 25 years. And then you look at papers even as old as the Herald, only a decade old, and it's begin to see the commitment, the
Right.
difference they can make in a community, as well as the dailies like the Sun News or the Florence Morning News or the Robertsonian. The real difference that a newspaper can make in a community is because you can touch and hold it.
Yeah, I think so. And if there's a local aspect to it, people can relate to it. They find out what's going on, and they see the names of the people they know. They know these are people making decisions in their personal lives. So that really makes a difference.
Tom, that trip up to Spartanburg, you were around. I mean, there were folks from all the papers. What was that like for y'all?
For us, we were very proud because when you go up there, it's a 2-day event. All the papers from all throughout the state are there, and they have an entire convention center room set up with all the winners. And when you walked in, the first thing you saw this year was a copy of the Myrtle Beach Herald saying we won first place.
Wow, the overall excellence.
Overall
award.
excellence,
Right.
yeah. So we sort of stood around it,
Yeah.
listen to comments. But, we're very proud of that. That's the first thing anybody saw, whether the dailies, the weeklies, or anything else. The first thing you saw was the Herald. So.
Did y'all get a picture of that, Tom? My
We
God.
should have, yeah.
Golly, that alone would have been a great front page story.
Exactly,
That's
yeah.
tremendous.
Yeah, we were very proud of that.
When you think about it, just as you step back and look, last week we had a guest recently focused on some of the violence issues happening in the community, a sexual assault or sexual assault attempts. And I think I saw last week's editorial, y'all were focused on some of the cameras in parking lots or some of the issues that have arisen.
Exactly.
To provide that. I mean, these are some big issues that y'all get into.
And that's something that I feel we should get into. I mean, we're a community newspaper, and we need to look after the community, period. If it's politics, if it's protecting the citizens, whatever, finances, whatever, we need to look after it.
How do y'all go about deciding who's going to cover what stories, Tom? You've got how many people writing for
I have 2 other people, Steve
Okay.
Porter and Paul Gable.
you? Right.
And we pretty much, over time, have divided up areas. One does local city stories, one does county. Everybody sort of picks in on feature stories. After a while, everybody finds their niche and what they're comfortable with. So.
Now, of course, each of you, or you and Steve Porter, each have columns that y'all write. Porter's
Right.
Point, and
Yeah,
yours
that's-
is
yeah.
a different drum.
Exactly. Which is sort of fun because the news stories sometimes cut and dry. This happened. Columns, you can sort of put your opinions in, and
Yeah.
you can come up with all. I try to get a different subject each week. You know?
Right.
Sometimes serious, sometimes sort of off the wall, sometimes I tend to get on my soapbox a little bit, you know,
Oh, yeah.
which is okay, you know.
That's right. And
Yeah.
of course,
You know.
Steve last week had some issue. He said he would never write about it
And,
again.
yeah,
Wrote
he
about
wrote
it
about
again.
He'll write about it again.
That's
and again,
right.
you know.
That's right. And of course, you had something I think I saw about Pete Strickland and the coach
Pete
out
was,
there.
yeah, Pete was a great guy. I met Pete. He was the former coach of Coastal Carolina basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
Pete was a great guy. Pete cared about his players. He has the highest graduation rate of all athletes of any college in the entire state in any sport.
You're kidding.
Yeah,
This was the women's basketball
the
team?
men's basketball team.
Oh, is that right? It was
Yeah.
the men's basketball team.
And they sort of let him go last week because his winning record wasn't quite up there. But he cared about the players. He had some, you know, there's just a story actually came out last week that 45 of the 63 teams in the NCAA tournament this week have graduation rates below 50%.
Wow.
And Pete-
45 of the 63.
Yeah, so, you know, Pete concentrated on the kids. And that was sort of my column. I see, sort of wished him luck and say, you know, I would hope that colleges start looking at the athletes more, students more than they do the
Right. The
money
student
aspect of it.
athlete rather than the athlete student. Sure.
Exactly.
That's a tough thing when you do factor in all the efforts that go into fundraising.
Exactly,
And to know
yeah.
that we see the tremendous response that like the David Bennett and the folks there at the Chanticleer football team has brought to that university. You hear
Yeah.
folks like at Horry Georgetown Tech or otherwise thinking, my God, I never had any idea what a football team would do.
Yeah, exactly.
As it impacts their fundraising across the board. So I'm sure
Yeah,
that's,
it's a big picture, but, you know, it's become such a big business, you know, that I just want to say
What about-
Pete did a good job.
about your alma mater, pal. I mean, you know, they really get into
Hey,
fundraising there. That's right.
Exactly, major
Yeah.
fundraising. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've said it filters down, and I've become a little more jaded as the years
Right,
go up. You know,
yeah.
I've been the biggest rah-rah fan, you know,
The Tigers.
go
yeah.
Tigers, whether
Right.
winning or losing. But, you know,
Yeah.
you hate to see that the students sort of get pushed to the wayside
Yeah.
behind the money. So,
Oh. These are young men and women.
yeah, they're kids.
18,
They're
19,
kids,
20.
You know, these aren't pro athletes, but, you know. Of course, when Clemson wins, when they do, I'm still happy, but, you know, you still got to. I think they need to look after the students a little more. And that was
Yeah.
sort of my soapbox last week, but, you know,
That's great.
I'll have another one this week. So.
As you think about different pieces and when you come up with stuff, sometimes it can become very poignant. Tom, sometimes it really impacts. I was fascinated to see a woman I was visiting one day who said that she opens up to a different drum. This is actually Billy Alford's mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Said she opens up to a different drum every week. That's the first thing she looks for is your column. Folks have really fallen in love with different writers. Folks like Porter and
Yeah.
read his stuff, and now Paul Gable's different educator. And
that really makes you feel good when somebody tells you that. You know, they look forward to what you're going to write. So,
Right.
and then that adds a little extra more responsibility. You know, you don't want to put anything too off the wall there. So
That's right.
sometimes, we'll take some personal. Writing is a way to get out feelings sometimes, and having a column you can do that also. So, but yeah, it always makes you feel good when somebody says, "Hey, I read that article, I read that column, I like this," or sometimes you get, "Well, I didn't agree with you, but I read it." You know, it's kind of
Right,
thing.
right. Now, Tom, you broke the story on the Pavilion's master developer, Barry Landreth, having some potential issues that
Yeah, I get blamed for that.
a lot
one
of
sometimes.
folks both blamed and lauded for that. I mean, that was a big deal. That broke on a
Actually, I got a tip, and like I said, when you're in the community a while, people know they can trust certain people, and you know, I'm proud to say a lot of people think they can trust the Herald. You know,
right.
so I got a tip from a business in that area that said this is going on. You might want to check on this guy, and I got to check in and found out some sort of strange going on there. So we sort of wrote the story, and luckily they found out. Time to tell them goodbye and go back to
Yeah,
California.
sure. You broke that on a Thursday, and then everyone else followed soon
Friday and
thereafter,
Saturday, yeah.
Friday, and then later on.
And
of
that's
course-
always, you know, it's always that little personal thing. If you could break a story, I mean, if it's the TV, if it's daily papers, weekly papers,
Right.
if you can break a story, that's always that little personal.
Oh, yeah,
thing,
that's got to be. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you think back over the 15 years about some other stories that you were able to
There's a
break?
story that was a storyline Paul was working on Halfcraft. We sort of gave a little inside information about that company. And get me wrong, I hope this company does well.
Right.
I hope they bring in 400 or 500 jobs in Myrtle Beach. But when they announced it a couple years ago, I said, well, nobody had heard of them. I thought, little information. And I got to check it in Texas. They said, well, nobody from South Carolina's called us. We could give you a few warnings about this company. So we sort of broke that, and now there's some, questions.
I remember when you did that research way back more than a
Yeah.
year ago, Tom.
More than a year ago, yeah.
Obviously called the folks out there in Texas. As you say, it's very important to stress you hope
I
the
hope
company
they do
does
well.
very well.
Yeah, we could use a company to bring in 300 or 400 jobs, and I hope they do.
Sure, or even 65 or 75 or 85 jobs, but depending on the amount of effort that financially that the county or the redevelopment authority or otherwise has to make. And of course, this isn't an issue that would be folks in the PD and southeastern North Carolina would be familiar with. On the news side of that, what exactly is that story? This is a company that came to Myrtle
This is a
Beach.
company that came to Myrtle Beach. They refurbished a plane called Dornier 328, some kind of jets. And the whole idea behind the Myrtle Beach is they bring them over here, finish the planes, refinish them, and send them out. And apparently there's some problems with their production plant in Germany. It's a big, Paul's doing a whole series of stuff right now. But
Right.
originally they promised about 300 or 400 jobs. They were given incentives from the county and the state to bring these jobs in.
Sure.
Haven't quite reached there yet, so, but hopefully they will.
Yeah, let's pray to heck they will.
And that goes back to the point where, you know, when you see something or you hear about a news item, sometimes you need to dig a little deeper to find out, you know.
Right.
This could have been a very top-notch company. That would be great, too. But, you know, it's our job to let people know what's really going on, and that's what we try to do.
Paul was early in the stages on covering some of the issues right behind our studio here, behind the Herald,
Right.
of the new proposed airport between the county and the FAA and others, city.
Right.
They get involved in that, and of course to see some of the issues that are now coming up. He's been covering that since the get-go, financial issues
Exactly.
of potential costs that have spiraled, and hopefully, again, you hope they'll all be pulled back in.
I hope we see a brand-new big terminal right here behind our
Yeah.
studio here. But, you know,
It should be
never
pretty
know.
loud out here.
It's going to be
That's
loud,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll get used
Traffic's
to it.
going to be a
I'm
little
sure.
bit pain, I think, but we'll get used to it, yeah.
You know, you think about over the 15 years and the experiences of both column writing as well as news writing, how do you make sure, Tom, that you and your writers, Steve Porter and Paul Gable, do not match column-related stuff, personal opinion oftentimes, and let that flow into news stories? How do you make sure that, of course, you know, folks have talked to you in the past about
Yeah.
former relationships with people.
Exactly.
How do you make
well,
sure?
And that comes down to just personal integrity. I mean, that comes down to the individual person. You know, it would be real easy to slant every story the way you want it, but we make sure that we go to extreme measures not to, you know. And sometimes, you know, everybody's human. It's hard to keep personal beliefs out. But as far as the news stories, we try to put boom, 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 this is what happened. If it's a column, you can go out, you know, whatever. But in a news story, people want to find out the news. They don't want to find out what you think the news should be. They want to find out what it is. And I think we do okay with it. Yeah.
You know, the fascinating thing, so oftentimes national news or regional news you pick up on Fox News Channel or on CNN, so it's so vital with local news, whether it's in your daily or your community paper, that you're really able to focus on that story and get into the meat of it.
And the Herald is growing over the last year or so, and people are realizing that we do the stories that are important to them, and we do them fairly. We don't have an agenda.
Right,
You
right.
know, some people might not agree with what we write, but we write what happened, and we don't have an agenda, so they know we're going to be fair about it. So it's doing pretty well now. So.
Yes, absolutely. There's a long way to go. You know, it's so
Yeah.
fascinating when you think about papers like the Oregon Independent, which I think kicked off in March of 1980.
Yeah.
And their ability to get to their level where they're now mailing, 3,500 copies a week.
Exactly.
And to think about, obviously, this paper having kicked off in the early 90s and its opportunity now to get to that level on mail in a similar amount. You're prayerfully hopeful that all papers will get that level, then break the 4,000 level so that you can compete with papers in the 4,000 to 7,000 or 8,000 range for overall excellence. That'd be a great opportunity.
And we have to remember also in a community like Myrtle Beach, there's always an influx of people coming and going. So we have to keep in mind that a lot of these people don't know what happened here 1 year or 2 years ago. We sort of have to remind them what's going on. So.
Do you have some good camaraderie with the editors at the other papers? Do you get to spend any time with Kathy Ropp over in Conway or
Actually,
the folks in North Myrtle Beach?
I probably run into reporters more than than editors, but all the reporters in town, be it newspaper, TV, or whatever, we all cover the same events. We all know each other. It's like a little camaraderie going on there.
Kind of a
Having
family.
a good time. Yeah, it actually really is. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, where's so and so? Where'd he go? Where'd she go? I heard you got a new guy.
Right.
There's a new cameraman. It's kind of, everybody knows everybody. So
That's great.
It is, and everybody works together well.
What do you think's been the most exciting aspect for you as we wrap, Tom, over the last 15 years to think about what got you into the business and what's kept you in it?
Just the fact that I've been able to mesh some really intense interests and loves that I have, the politics, government, I majored in politics.
Right.
To be able to use that in a way and to make a living at it and just to meet all kinds of fascinating people in this job.
That's great.
Yeah.
Those are great words. Thanks so much for being with
You
us
bet.
this
Enjoy
morning.
it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Tom O'Dare coming up next. The Freedom of Information Act is real. The Freedom of Information Act is for you as a citizen, wherever you are in Laurinburg or Lumberton or in South Carolina, any part of the state. You need to recognize that it's for you as a citizen. All you have to do is ask. You don't have to show any identification. You don't have to say an oath. But you need to recognize that if you don't want to go out and you don't want to have to dig deep to find out what's going on, or even just make those simple questions, know that the press, whether it's the North Carolina press or the South Carolina press, the press is there to represent you. They're there to represent the citizens of whatever community they serve, whether it's Myrtle Beach with the Myrtle Beach Herald or the Sun News or any other papers that serve the area, or in whatever community you're in. Take the time to recognize the importance of public notices, of the press stepping out to recognize your interest in whatever they do on a daily basis. They're there to represent the community, and they do a dang good job of it. Support your local press.